What's up, and welcome back to Nowstalgia Pod, giving you your weekly look what's going on in pop culture. My name is Pat Sheehan, joined by my co-host, fresh off the West Coast,
Mm.
Dave Martin Swagger. Dave, how you doing, man?
Doing good. Doing good. Rental car was a hybrid. I would recommend
Oh,
this strategy for everyone. Hybrid EV at that. So save on that gas, my friends. Good stuff.
very nice. Was that an upcharge at the rental
No,
car?
sir.
No.
No, it
Wow.
was one of those like I paid for the cheapest kind. And then it was like, here, after point X, you can pick anything there. The key is in the vehicle. And that's what we did. I was like, oh, this is appealing. It also had like the very nice, screen with the navigation. I was like, oh, could get used to this. Good stuff.
Dave, I would tell you to shout out the rental car dealership, but until they sponsor us,
Yeah,
we're
no,
gonna
no free
withhold.
ads. Come on, no.
But anyways, we got a little bit of catching up to do. We predicted the Emmys, so we obviously have to react to them. But we also had two hip hop albums that we wanted to talk about. We had two TV shows that one that just wrapped up, and another one that dropped over the weekend, and then a Clint Eastwood movie. Okay, but let's start with the Emmys. And Dave, did you watch the Emmys?
No, I was away and on West Coast time, so I did not watch the Emmys. I would have if I had been around, but I obviously checked in on what happened and for the most part saw that our predictions were pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, we I don't feel like we predicted anything too out there, and that this year ended up being a lot of chalk, a lot of the same shows getting many awards, which kind of makes for a bit of a boring night. But I think there were still some moments, maybe some not so great things that we'll touch on. But I guess where do you want to start? What stood out most to you from the award show?
Yeah, I mean the big headline is that Netflix beats HBO in the total wins category for the first time. They had been slightly more nominated a few times at this point, but HBO has always been at the top. But Netflix wins 44 total Emmys across all the nights, tying the single year Emmy record set by CBS in 1974. And in the process of doing this, Netflix gets its first win for a series category, its first two in that Best Limited Series, Queen's Gambit, and Best Drama, The Crown. And obviously, all the millions on millions, billions really, of content spent at Netflix for years now, they have the top prizes of the Emmys have still eluded them. And that is no longer the case. Now, whether you think Netflix will continue this trend or HBO will, of course, rise back to its rightful place at the top. Depends how you think about it, but I think that's the biggest headline because that's new. That's something different.
Yeah, I'm trying to think, and I guess in thinking about the big awards that were won by Netflix, Halston, Ewan McGregor getting the upset
Yeah,
over Paul Bettany stands out. But I'm trying to think, like I guess Queen's Gambit obviously is the one that stands out most there. What other shows won awards from Netflix? Someone
it's
I
The
just
Crown.
didn't
The
watching The
Crown just
Crown,
won a
right?
shit ton of
Yeah,
shit.
the one I kept missing. Yeah, so I think that's a good question, right? Because my first thought was, is it that the shows this year are better? Is it that more shows with more variety are getting nominated? But yeah, it sounds like it's just really one prestige show that just kind of like swept everything.
Yeah,
Um, it's an interesting question. I lean towards probably not because I think Netflix has just been so far ahead in the content producing aspect of streaming, and with other prestige or hopefully prestige shows on the way, such as uh, the Hobbit or the Lord of the Rings spinoff
mm,
from Amazon that's down the line, more Game of Thrones
yeah.
content coming back. You expect that to be high level. I don't think it's going to corner the market the way that The Crown did this year. I don't foresee that. Do you?
No, I mean it's important to remember that there was no Better Call Saul or Euphoria or Succession in the mix this year. No Barry, no
Right.
Atlanta on the comedy side. Um, and also, if you just think about what Netflix does, like Ozark will be back, Stranger Things will be back for final seasons, and they've been nominated in top categories before. But other than that, like Netflix is an all things to all people company when it comes to what they make. Prestige is just a certain piece of that, whereas Prestige is everything FX does and everything
Yeah.
HBO does. So it's just probably just not wise to bet on it continuing for Netflix, just because that's not their sole game. That's not those aren't their goals. So it's nice to see The Crown get honored after a long run still ongoing. It's impressive that it's able to turn over its ensemble cast multiple times and not
Hmm.
miss a beat. This operates on such a high level for really everything it does, and definitely deserving to be the first best drama for Netflix. I have no problem with that. And same for best limited series for Gambit, even if it wasn't my choice in the category. We talked in our predictions episode that the category was incredibly stacked. You really couldn't go wrong with whoever did end up winning.
Hmm. Yeah. Gambit had a pretty big night, and I think people were happy about that. Probably I would say probably the show that I've heard most of our friends or people in my
Mhm.
circle have watched and really enjoyed, at least out of the ones that were nominated. Some other cool wins that I just want to shout out: Michaela Cole getting a writing
Yeah,
award, giving, I think, a really powerful and
had to happen.
yeah, really great speech. Gene Smart getting best lead in a comedy series for Hacks, which long time coming for her. I think you predicted Julianne Nicholson getting the Mayor of Easttown win.
Yeah, that one's funny to me because the way I talked about it last week was that, do you see Netflix winning twice? Sorry, do you see Disney and specifically Marvel winning two acting awards? Because it was favored that Catherine Hahn would win for supporting limited series and Paul Bettany would win for lead limited series. And it turns out they lost both of those categories, not just one, because of course, as you said, Ewan McGregor upsets Paul Bettany as well. So didn't call it all the way, but Marvel Marvel got some nominations. They showed up and they got nothing. And you know what? You know what they do get? They get a lot of people watching their shit. They make a lot of money. So don't cry over any spilled milk.
I don't think anyone's crying for Marvel at this point. In just kind of looking through here, I mean, what else stands out? Ted Lasso obviously had a big night. Um, Shout
Didn't
out
fall
Jason
effectively
Sudeikis.
as we had said.
Yeah. Olivia Coleman, always delightful whenever she gets up
Mm.
there and gets to make
Yeah,
a speech.
bit of a surprise. We kind of all assumed Emma Corrin was going to win, especially because Olivia Colman had previously lost her first time around as the queen. Of course, without Zendaya in the fold, Coleman once again rises to the top as an awards darling.
Yeah.
So always a bit foolish to bet against her when she's up for it. Um, you mentioned Ted Lasso. Ted Lasso winning Best Comedy Series. That means Apple wins a top prize in only its second year of operation. Thinking about how Apple started off with a bunch of shows top lined by The Morning Show. I don't think anyone saw like grand Emmy success happening so quick. And maybe Ted Lasso is truly just a flash in the pan, bit of a fluke for Apple. Remains to be seen on that. But they got a lot of other stuff in the pipe, like the big sci-fi adaptation Foundation's about to come out. So Apple's not slowing down. And if anything, this might just embolden them. Do you know what? We can keep spending the money on content. Why not? Again, the money is no object to us, and we're already finding success.
Hey, I don't hate it. As people of this show know, big Ted Lasso fans. So keep putting more and more money into creating some good content for us. Dave, anything else that you want to touch on with the Emmys? Anything that stood out?
Um, I mean, I feel like people kind of already assumed this, but it's a true changing of the guard. This is the first time all top three series prizes were all won by a streaming service. Obviously, Apple, Netflix, and Netflix. I honestly thought that had happened already. I knew Netflix hadn't won it, but kind of funny to see that not happen. But yeah, now with Netflix and Apple getting in the mix, they join Hulu and Amazon. So all the top streaming dogs have won the top prizes already. So I think betting on who's next to get in that mix. Do you think a Paramount Plus original gets to the top first? That's probably going to be fun.
Yeah.
After all, there were nominations for Quibi in short form. So but yeah, all the big dogs finally have won something big. But yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
and I think the last note I have is the Emmy ratings did jump up a considerable amount past 2020, which is to be expected because I think, as we've said, as many people have said, everything was down in 2020, and it was pandemic related more than anything else. Obviously, award show appetite is not what it once was, but nice to see a bounce back in interest in some respect.
Yeah, and I think we should just note real quick, some of the criticism of the show
Mm,
and of the awards of the night, specifically the winners of all the major acting categories being
right.
white males or females. And this just continues to be a issue at these award shows that people of diverse backgrounds not really getting, or diverse identities, I should say, not really getting the
Yeah.
recognition that they deserve.
Yeah, and in this case, it's quite I don't know, interesting, unique, new, that it was a very diverse field of
Mhm.
nominees. To be in the day, a lot of the big categories ended up going to white people, ended up going to performers in this year playing uh, British royalty, something tried and true when it comes down to that, And Michael K. Williams, we kind of expected him to win. His final
Mhm.
chance, Lovecraft Country. Again, the voting happened before he passed, but he was the favorite going in. He ends up not winning. Tobias Menzies wins because it's just a juggernaut night for the crown. And, you know, like Michaela Cole not winning, but it's in place of Kate Winslet. It's not that Kate Winslet is uh, undeserving in any respect. It's just that, if anything, I think even more work needs to begin earlier in the process that we can continue to see a more equitable space as possible. But it's certainly better than it's been. But yeah, I mean, when no one ends up winning after all those nominees, it only goes so far.
Hey, but at least Hamilton got recognized finally, right?
Yeah, I mean, it could have been worse. It could have been worse. They could have had more acting wins. So yeah, I
Yeah.
think Hamilton's finally done, and I like Hamilton. We've talked about Hamilton. But I think Hamilton at award shows is finally done. Hamilton premiered in 2015, and it's finally
I,
over.
I'm gonna let you put the dirt on Hamilton's grave. I'm not ready to say it's done yet. I'm sure it will pop up somehow. But
It's true. They could
anyways,
do a new movie or something, like a new version, a new recording. Oh God, you're right.
anyways, why don't we move on to something I'm definitely a lot more excited to talk about than the Emmys, which is Injury Reserve dropping their second album. By the time I get to Phoenix, and we talked about Injury Reserve's self-titled debut album back in 2019. I think the highlight for me, a song that I found myself listening to or coming back to quite a lot, is "Jailbreak the Tesla," which was
Ah,
on our
yeah,
2019 best of 2019
yeah.
playlist on Spotify. Check that
Amine.
out. Yeah, and I'm just I don't know what I expected when I saw that we were reviewing the Injury Reserve album. It was never this,
No.
and I was pleasantly surprised in the best way possible. Um, I mean, just general reaction to your listening of this album.
Yeah. By the time I get to Phoenix, notably the first release of any kind since Injury Reserve lost one of its members, Groggs. He passed away rather abruptly and unexpectedly last year. I don't believe we know really what happened, but he passed. So now it's just a duo of Richie and Parker. And they say that this was largely recorded before Groggs died. And of course, he's still all over the album, laying down verses alongside Richie. But I wasn't expecting them to really go into this experimental direction. They've been an exciting group in hip hop, already the most accomplished rap act out of Arizona. Not that there's much competition there, but they've been cool. They've been unique. They've been an underground act that has its own identity. But to kind of flip it on its head with this new record, just from a production standpoint, was not what I expected. And I think I respect it more than I want to revisit it because it is awfully jarring song to song.
Yeah, and I think especially given just the overall feel of the album, right? It feels, and just by the cover, which if you're watching on YouTube, you can see behind me, it's like this guy, it's like, I don't know, outline of a guy, shadow of a guy with like a full red background. Looks like he's kind of like in the clouds or something like that with the sun. over his head, and it almost kind of looks apocalyptic in a sense. And I think that's kind of the feel I get with this album. Is it just feels like something that's grappling with existential dread as well as like self uh, uncertainty or self discovery in a not so great way, and it's just really unsettling at points. But
Mm,
also, I think I agree, it's a very impressive album in terms of production, but also I think just delivery on this. Like,
mm.
um, I was trying to think of a comparable for this, right? And I think like
Death
Jesus,
grips or something. I don't
yeah,
know.
Death Grips. I think there's like elements of like Earl Sweatshirt type production where it feels
Mm,
kind of like slowed and chopped and kind of like, just kind of disjointed, but still very like smooth in a way. And then also at times it felt like 100 gex. I'm like, man, how do you take all that and put it into an album? But I thought it was a really impressive showing. Um, yeah, I mean, what stood out to you most? You mentioned the production. What did you like or not like about it?
I mean, it's just really funky, you know. I think Superman, that the
Yeah.
second song is probably my favorite example. It's just really electronic, wild. It's not a familiar rhythm, anything like that, you know. And Richie's vocals on top of that often come with a lot of distortion, a lot of after effects, you know, and combine that with a lot of times the vocal delivery is intentionally emotional, angry, fast flow, you know, whatever it might be. Combining all those things together, it's often very loud, but also it's just like really like big music, you know.
Mhm.
And not that they haven't had big production before. I think Parker's production's always been pretty impressive for someone with no real like ties to any other hip hop scenes or anything. Yeah, I think of my favorite songs of the group, like "Oh Shit" and "All This Money," have like really like sick bass lines and like grooves and stuff. But this is like, I don't know if you can go jam to this the way I can just throw on "All This Money" and be fucking hyped, you know. And this is
Yeah.
obviously operating at a much higher level. And you spoke to the dread and the the emotion that comes out. It's weird to reconcile that Grog's made most of this album because it sounds like something they would make after they lost their friend, not something they would make with their friend when he was still with them. You know?
Yeah. No, I completely agree. And I think it's the sort of thing where, like, I, as I think about like what I think I really appreciate about this album, I think it is just the uniqueness, and it is the fact that it feels like their inspiration from this comes from a place that feels very familiar to people. Like I was mentioning, there's something that almost feels like it encapsulates the feeling a lot of people have had over the last
Mm,
18 months throughout the
yeah.
course of the pandemic, while also being something that sounds very specific. And it's like this like vagueness but also specificity. I almost can't really describe it that well, but it just kind of resonates in a way that I just
Hmm.
was really impressed by. And like you said, these songs aren't super accessible. Like I don't think anyone who is like maybe a big Lil Nas X fan, we're going to talk about his album in a second, and just kind of like a fan of pop is going to turn this on and be like, oh yeah, this is great. They're going to be like, what the hell am I listening to? And I think that's kind of why I appreciate it, because I think when you actually sink into the songs and upon second or third listen and getting ready for this, I really just found myself to just find the way that like they put all this together to be something that brought out a lot of emotion, maybe not always good emotion, and also that I just had never heard before. And I think the fact that I can't describe it is probably what I like about it. Um, does that make it good? I think it's good.
Yeah.
It's just it's something new. So I don't know. Like I guess Brockhampton also came to mind sometimes
Yeah.
on the
Like
album.
Iridescence, Brockhampton in particular, probably from the production angle.
Yeah, for sure. Something like Footwork in the Forest, I think, kind of brought some of those Brockhampton feels out. Um, I guess I'm trying to think like top picks for you. That reminded me a lot of like 808s, but just like with this more like grovelly delivery and vocal performance. I really liked Postpartum a lot. I thought that stood out to me as one of the tracks that maybe people can
Hmm.
listen to and enjoy a little bit more. But I don't know, man. It was definitely something I did not expect for sure.
Yeah, I'd imagine Knees is probably going to end up being more popular just because that's uh softer
Hmm.
vocals. You're probably easier to hear. I really like Smoke Don't Clear. I thought Richie's
Hmm.
delivery. I like the energy on that. But yeah, it's something that demands being listened to again, just to kind of sink in with the layers to it. It asks a lot, so it has to be
Yeah,
something you want.
I know. I was when I first put it on, right? So I was like, okay, Injury Reserve. Last album was pretty good. Throw this on as I'm doing some work, and like I heard Outside, and I was like, where the hell is this song going? And I was like, okay, I need to like tune into this more. So I stopped it and came back to it later. Um, and I think these songs have grown on me more and more. I think I'll be interested to see when I come back to it near the end of the year if it's still something that hits as much for me, or if it maybe doesn't have that lasting effect. So by the time I get to Phoenix, check it out. Give us your thoughts below in the comments. Today, let's talk about someone who's not traditional but more accepted in the pop sphere, Lil Nas X. And it feels like he's been around for a very long time. It feels like he's ever present. We got Seven. I think it was 2 years ago.
Hmm.
The
19.
LP or the EP, and yeah, I just hearing Montero now. I'm left feeling a little bit mixed. I thought I was going to like this a little bit more, but I think some of the highs of it are still just like exactly why Lil Nas X is who he is.
Yeah, I agree. I'm very mixed on it. I think grappling with Lil Nas X, the online personality, Lil Nas X, the celebrity, is a little different than Lil Nas X, the artist, because his music, I don't think it's there all the time, to be blunt. In the case of this album, we already heard the best stuff on the album. They
Mm,
were the singles, you know? So
yeah,
I didn't glean too much new from this full length once we got the album cuts. Is it better than the 7 EP? Yeah. But the 7 EP also has Panini, which is one of my favorite bangers of his,
sure.
you know? Um, and on Montero, debut album, named after his given first name, I would say Lil Nas X, he kind of shows his weaknesses and his strengths in equal measure. Like he's not the best rapper, he's not the best singer either, like in terms of like having like amazing vocals. But I think he sounds better when he's like trying to clean up and make like singing pop, like when he's doing hip hop, it's pretty basic and he's kind of carried by the production. Like Take a Day Trip is all over this on the production side of things. Obviously producers behind Mo Bamba and also Panini for Lil Nas X. So those beats bring it, especially like Industry Baby, one of the big singles. And I think when he can ride those beats effectively is when he's at his best. But I still think Lil Nas X is settling in to what his sound is because lyrically on this, it's like, yeah, y'all thought I'd be gone after Old Town Road, but I'm not a one hit wonder. I'm still here. It's like, yeah, we know. We got at this
Mhm.
point. You're a
Yeah,
pop star. I'm very happy for him. I love him as a celebrity. I think he's amazing. He's a great marketer. He's a online troll, but he's hilarious. He handles controversy really well. All that.
yeah,
But I still think he needs to settle in on what the music is going to be, if that'll stay his focus, and I'm sure it will be.
yeah. I agree. I think the best songs on here are pretty much, at least for me, Montero, Industry Baby. I really like Dollar Sign Slime. I feel like he rides that pretty well, and Megan comes in with an okay verse.
Mm.
But then after that, I don't know. Like, what really stood out? I don't know. And the thing is, I don't think there's like I think when he tries to go to maybe some of those like more emotional places, or maybe some like the deeper content is where
Mm.
he's um or maybe like sadder sounding songs. Maybe it's not even deeper content, but the sadder sounding songs is when I found myself tuning out or not being as interested. But man, he can really make a banger. Like you mentioned, Industry Baby,
Yeah.
Panini. I mean, even Old Town Road, which is more toned down and obviously at this point played out. But the longest running single in Billboard history, number one single in Billboard history.
Yep.
It's like, it's pretty obvious that he's got that star power. You mentioned the presence, you mentioned the just the his celebrity, but it's I was definitely left a little disappointed. And you have some big features on here, at least
Mm,
listed. Elton John comes in with a piano interpolation, I guess, or a piano cut, but like not singing.
mm.
It's a little disappointing. Doja Cat shows up for like 20 seconds, does a quick verse, and gets out. And the songs are quick, so like a guest verse is probably gonna feel shorter than usual. But like Miley Cyrus, just thrown in at the end, I thought she was all
Cyrus
right.
continuity, baby. Gotta have it.
Yeah, but I wasn't blown away by that. And does he really carry the songs on his own the rest of the time? I don't know. Like Montero, he definitely does,
Right.
but I don't know. Nothing else really popped off the way I was hoping it would. But the hits are huge. That's the thing. The hits are
Hmm.
really big.
Yeah. Yeah. I love Industry Baby. That's my favorite song. Again, I think the Take a Day Trip beat's fucking great.
Mhm.
Jack really slides on it. Nice feature of his. And even though Lil Nas X, like the rapping is sometimes like he's doing his best, like, you know, Cardi flow a little bit there. It's not the most intricate, rhyme scheme or anything, but again, he rides the beat well. Everything works. Good video, of course, that he performed recently. But like Scoop, right? Like Doja Cat and Lil Nas X are two sides of the same coin. Started out with novelty songs, not
Mhm.
really taken seriously, and then they became full-fledged pop stars. The problem is Doja Cat is just a lot more advanced at being a pop star right now and just has a lot more undeniable hits and good
Yeah.
songs. And Planet Her is a great album. You know, that song, the hook, the repetitive scoop, it's like it's just so weak to me. It's like this should have been such a better song because Doja Cat's on such a hot run right now, you know?
I mean, Scoop, the hook is Migos hook. It just
Right.
is pretty much stolen straight
Yeah.
from that.
And he's not offset. So it's
Yeah.
we're not happy about it. I saw some love for like Tales of Dominica and Lost in the
Yeah.
Citadel. Didn't really do it for me too much. And like lyrically on Dead Right Now, he gets into like some family issues, some more personal stuff, and that's fine. I'm happy to hear it too. Open up as best you can. But I just think like performance wise, he's still kind of just really just up and down depending on the song. So I was definitely let down just because I was really hoping that there would be an album cut that like I was really jazzed about, and it just wasn't.
Yeah. You know, uh, Want to just stay quick for was it Sun Go? No, Lost in the Citadel. You mentioned. Sorry. Uh, I mean, he's obviously trying to like find the lanes that he can really thrive in, right? And I think he knows like when it comes to just like pure pop banger, he can really put those out. But these other genres, Lost in Citadel could have been off of Machine Gun Kelly's most recent
Mm.
album, which has
Oh,
had
please.
actually a lot more staying power and love than I ever expected it would. So
He
shout out
might
to
win a Grammy, man.
Crazy. And you think about that cringy like video of him on top of the table, like playing the album for the first time, like dancing around in front of all those people. It's like, how did he go from this to
Yes.
winning Grammys? It's insane. But
While dating Megan
I,
Fox.
yeah, I think I could see Lil Nas X doing a little bit more of this stuff, like Lost in the Citadel, just because I think out of all the things he tried, that one at least I like perked up and was like, okay, like he sounds like he's at least confident at
Mm.
this. And you see him bring in Willow, right after her last album and doing something like that, or even Machine Gun Kelly, and they like share a song like
Uh,
this. Like, I think it's right there for him to
yeah,
do an album like
that's an
this for
interesting
sure.
thought. To my knowledge, I does he have a single guest feature that he's done? I don't know if he has. He actually has been largely self-contained to this point too. And I have no doubt that he will stick around and have staying power and
Mhm.
he'll get better as an artist because he is a pop star. There's no question about that. And
Yeah.
he invites tons of the bullshit conservative outrage machine, but he fucking handles it like a boss. It's great, and he gets so much unwarranted homophobia from many of his, uh, you know, alleged peers in hip hop and pop, and he's obviously a lot is bestowed upon him as he's a top 10 artist on Spotify that's openly gay. That does come with, and he's not only openly gay, like Troye Sivan is, but he's much more flamboyant than the average gay celebrity is, right? So there's a lot bestowed upon Lil Nas X, and I guess the music is only part of it, whether that's fair or not. But I have no doubt that he'll be rewarding to follow at the end of the day, even if it's just the Twitter entertaining me and a hot single here or there. That's good enough for me. I think he's great.
Yeah, I don't know if I would be really happy if his development down the road is making like really thoughtful, well crafted albums. But I think his lane's probably going to just be making huge hits and then middling albums. And,
Right.
I think that that's fine. Like he's more of a celebrity, I think, than an artist. And there's art in being just a celebrity too. So
It's true.
is what it is. But let's move forward to Nine Perfect Strangers. Yeah. Yeah. We just talked about White Lotus, and not to couch the conversation around this, but I think it's pretty obvious that really bad timing for Nine Perfect Strangers coming out. I think dropping this first episode right near the end of White Lotus's
Yeah.
run.
The
People were
White
a
Lotus
little.
finale, of course, HBO Sunday. The first 3 episodes of Nine Perfect Strangers premiered on Hulu 3 days later on Wednesday. It was as close as you could possibly be, honestly. And all those advanced reviews were pointing out that this is a poorly timed and a little bit familiar to the White Lotus, but it's not as good. So that's not great, you know.
Yeah. Well, this had all the makings of being something good. You have David E. Kelly,
Mm,
obviously very successful creator and TV showrunner, most notably for Big Little Lies recently,
mm.
um, and based off a 2018 book, which I think was a bestseller.
Yeah.
You have a
Also,
huge
a
cast,
Leanne Moriarty novel,
right,
just like Big Little Lies, and
right,
also
right.
featuring Nicole Kidman, just like Big Little Lies. It's very, very familiar of this orbit of Moriarty, Kidman, and Kelly. Of course, this time Hulu, not HBO.
Yeah, and just running down the at least the cast, you have Nicole Kidman, like you mentioned, Melissa McCarthy, Michael Shannon, Luke Evans,
Bobby
um,
Cannavale,
yeah, Bobby
Manny
Cannavale, Regina Hall.
Jacinto, Samara Weaving, Melvin Gregg. Like it's a lot of people that we like in TV and movies. No question. It's A-list.
Yeah. So
Gina Hall.
the ingredients are here, but I think I'm trying to think of why exactly it didn't work for me. I think it was just so much. I don't know if there's even a better way for me to say it. The show was just a lot, and it felt like there were so many different threads, so many different things they were trying to tie together, so many different like side plots. Who am I following? Who do I have to care about? What relationships matter, which don't? And where it got to from where it started is very surprising to me, and also not in a good way. So I don't know. We'll get more into it, but I guess just your initial reaction after finishing the series, Dave.
Yeah, just kind of a waste of time, honestly. Like, did not find it satisfying at the end. It really just fizzles out. I think the setup is appealing enough, intriguing enough. Again, you have this talented cast. You kind of, bringing them all together in this place. What's going on at this retreat? What's going to happen? There's some interesting threads there, but it just never amounts to anything like worth investing in. There's a lot of like, what the fuck, like narratives. Once you get like halfway through that, it's just really frustrating. Honestly, I didn't find it that entertaining by the end. I just found it kind of a fine of grating and annoying. So, um, the fact that it came out close to White Lotus actually doesn't matter to me at all because I actually find this a lot different than White Lotus. It's like,
Oh yeah,
yes, it's people going to a secluded place, a retreat, Hawaii, wherever the fuck this took place in the woods. It's on the surface similar, but White Lotus is more satirical and witty and matter of fact, whereas Nine Perfect Strangers is trying to be really metaphysical and like high minded and obviously failing
hmm
to do so. But like they're not actually that similar of a show once you get past like the setting and setup.
yeah. The setup is the only real comparison. I agree. And what I think we appreciate about White Lotus was it was a show that was entertaining for the relationships that you're following and for the dynamics at play, but also for the larger themes that
Yes.
the White Lotus really successfully weaved in and left you sitting with. Whereas like Nine Perfect Strangers, it feels almost kind of like it's in the world of the leftovers in a sense, but not nearly as like well crafted. And uh, I think like the themes about grief and letting go and healing and finding what's really important to you. Uh, Things that have been explored before, and I think some of those things hit like as much as the like whole micro dosing thing got taken to the extreme and uh really like unsettling to me in a lot of ways. I did find the stuff with Michael Shannon and his family, healing from the death of the suicide of their son slash
Mm.
brother. I found that to be like fairly moving, and like that kind of stuff I think always hits for me as long as it's done somewhat tastefully. I don't know if I don't know how I felt about all the messages and choices that they made in terms of the son like talking to them about it being a senseless act and things like that. But um, I think like the healing aspect of it was nice, and like obviously seeing the family come back together was nice. Um, I also liked Bobby Cannavale and Melissa McCarthy. I thought they were like a nice story arc together. But after that, man, I don't know.
Yeah.
Like it felt like everything else was just kind of like there, but nothing really came of it.
Right. Yeah, like Manny Jacinto, good place. He's like barely has anything to do as his lackey of Nicole Kidman. Samara leaving Melvin Gregg. I think there was a lot more potential with that as like superficial people trying to like find their own meaning and self worth, but like they don't get a lot of like individual screen time,
Yeah, they just
honestly.
get sidelined.
Yeah. And I like Luke Evans. I feel like the stuff with him wanting to have a kid is introduced and then completely dropped until the very end. And he's more just doing like reporter watchdog stuff, you know? Um, and then like, yeah, Nicole Kidman kind of starts to dominate it and not in a good way. I think like obviously there's I'd say a poor Russian accent going on. That's whatever to me, honestly. But like I was not invested in her journey or the revelation that like she lost her daughter and she is trying to get to a point where she can use this therapy on herself. It's like that. I don't think they did the work to set that up well enough. And connected to that, I did not like what was going on with Regina Hall. I just thought it was a really
Yeah,
over the top performance that was not fun to be around. And like the twist, that she was the shooter. It's like felt completely flat to me, So I agree. I think the Marconis for the most part, and then also McCarthy and Cannavale. Those are like the relationships you can invest in. But other stuff
yeah,
is just not given the time it needs, or just not actually that interesting.
yeah. And Regina Hall as an actress, I like really hate to say this, but like a lot of times I just find her like her acting style and like just her like personality on screen to be a little bit like grating to me. And so, you know, then you introduce her as this character who I feel like is really like poorly written, and it feels a bit like one note kind of like she lost her husband because Masha was having an affair with her and or with him, and
Mm.
then she has anger issues from that and can't find a way of like coping with that and becomes violent, and that's just kind of her character throughout the whole thing. Finding healing through Masha giving that to her, I thought was also like I thought it was actually great when she said, well, I can't forgive myself, and then at the end she just kind of was like, well, I was able to forgive myself because someone else forgave me, and I was like, okay, that I felt like you just totally like rebuffed on the point. Maybe I missed something there. I was not microdosing while watching this, so if it's on some like other plane that I'm not aware of, please let me know. Um, but yeah, I think overall it's just a lot of potential and really uh, everything fell pretty flat. You mentioned Manny Jacinto and uh, the relationship that the relationship triangle between him, Nicole Kidman, and Tiffany Boone as Delilah. Um, just felt so unnecessary. And I guess you needed someone who was going to like step out and expose what happened at this place as like a way of like wrapping it up, I guess. But overall, I just felt like that was just like, what the fuck? I found myself saying that a lot. Like, what the hell is going on? Um, but I think there are still some good performances. I think if you if you can kind of just like take it for what it is, I think this is a show that you can just like watch and be entertained by. But it's definitely not in the same plane as White Lotus or other shows that I think develop character a lot better.
Yeah,
Oh,
it was a swing. I guess not really a swing. You're adapting Liam Moriarty novel, but I don't know. I feel like I expect a little bit more from David E. Kelly. Um, Grace Van Patten, who's the young Marconi daughter, she was new to me. Kind of
okay.
had an uncanny physical resemblance to Shailene Woodley
Yeah.
in terms of Big Little Lies and Kelly and Kidman and all that. I found that a little through the looking glass, but yeah, a Nine Perfect Strangers just doesn't quite doesn't quite come together. It's whatever. Kidman's working. She's busy.
Yeah. Why don't we move on to a show I enjoyed a lot more than Nine Perfect Strangers, Sex Education season 3. And I think we really enjoyed season 1. A huge surprise, but something that very like welcome surprise a few years back. Season 2, I think we felt was a little bit more like middling, but still an enjoyable season of TV. I think where this show really thrives is mixing in uh, serious topics, representation with um, humor and
Yeah.
lightheartedness, and it's a really like it walks that line really well. And season 3 continues that, and I think actually elevates itself a little bit. While some of the season, and especially all the stuff with Gemma from uh, Girls, I'm forgetting her name all of a sudden.
Jemima Kirk.
Who?
Yeah,
Yeah,
the
Shemima, yeah,
new head teacher comes to the school to clean up its public image.
yeah. With some of the stuff with Jemima Kirk in this season, I was just like, this is a little too much. Like, I don't know, like that, like evil headmaster-ish
Yeah,
type of
Umbridge from
thing.
Harry Potter.
Yeah, exactly. Um, I still think some of the story arcs of this season are the best that the show's ever done. It was operating at a really high level. How did you feel about season 3 of Sex Education?
Yeah, I agree. I think the beauty of the show is that it's put the time in to make you care about so much of its ensemble and the relationships going on in the ensemble, whether they're new ones, long existing ones, fractured ones, whatever it is. You're invested in this story. And even when it's more tropey, melodramatic love triangle stuff, you still care because you're like rooting for all these characters in one way or another. And yeah, I thought Sex Education 3 was a great return to form. Not that 2 was bad, but 2 was not as good as 1. And I think this kind of got back to what season 1 did, while also keeping what was going on in season 2. Like you have this wider ensemble that was really branched out in the second season, kept all that going, introduced new people on top of that. But also we kind of got back to a little bit of focusing on the sex positivity, the titular sex education um, that made the first season so, I think, effective because you had that immediate hook of like the clinic and that structure. That was great. Obviously we don't have that. Um, those rules that box on the show anymore in terms of like the drama, but I still think like the narrative was able to like keep the themes that we really liked from the beginning season and kind of continue to grow the greater show the way it's been going. So it's like a natural place to continue in terms of a new season. But yeah, I really liked it.
Yeah, you know, just my first reflection of the show, and I think you summed it up really well. Like the fact that they've built out so many different characters to the point where like you can kind of take Asa Butterfield and Nakuti Gatwa and just kind of
Mm,
like sideline them for full episodes and not even miss a beat.
no,
Um, it is really impressive, but the way that they've taken some of the characters who, Adam, season one into season two, I mean, you start to soften on not season two, but season one, you're just like, this guy's a prick, like absolute
Yeah.
prick. And then season two starts to, or end of season one into season two starts to kind of flesh that out more. And I think his story arc in this season is maybe my favorite that the show's ever done. Seeing him grapple with his identity, come to terms with it more, come to terms with like how do you find joy, like what makes you actually happy, and like being okay with that being something like dog training and competition was just like so rewarding and like heartfelt. I was just super impressed with how they played him out and his dad as well, who I completely disliked going into this season as someone who was very
Right.
obviously hard, and then fleshing his character out as like that generational family trauma. Just really, really impressive and some awesome moments with that. Did not see that coming, but was super grateful with that. Well, what story arcs or character development did you find most gratifying for you?
Yeah, I agree about Adam for sure. Definitely didn't see it coming. It just everything about Eric and Adam's relationship I thought was really well done
Yeah.
the whole time. Honestly, it's moves at a slower pace given the kind of character Adam is, but it I think it all really works. They don't skip any steps. It's great, and
Mhm.
cover going from uh acceptance of one's identity to what position you prefer in the relationship. It's the show is obviously very sex positive and very open and honest about all kinds of things, really. But I thought that they did a great job with that. And also, other side of the coin, when you have Eric going to Nigeria and even the lead up to that, it's like, being openly gay, still
Mhm.
repressed in many parts of the world. And you can't
Yeah.
forget that. There's a lot of work to be done, and how that work gets done really depends on where you are. And yeah, everything about that was great. I think the one the one downside to Adam's dad in that storyline was you have Jason Isaacs showing up as the brother, Adam's uncle, and he's like barely in the show, like barely a character, very one note. It's like, why is Jason Isaacs playing this? Like, I love Jason Isaacs as an actor. He's fucking awesome in The Patriot, obviously, and
Yeah.
people know him as Lucius Malfoy in Harry Potter, among other things. But like, kind of wasted him. In terms of a British actor, I wish you could have saved him for a meteor male adult part in season 4 or something.
I wonder if there will be though. Especially because it seems like Alistair Petrie as Mr. Groff is getting a little bit more run in the show and fleshed out. I wonder if there's going to be some sort of reckoning between him and Jason Isaacs down the line. You can only hope because, like you said,
Please.
you don't want to lose a talent like Jason Isaacs just for a bit role like that. So, what else did you like outside of Adam and
Yeah,
Eric and the dad?
I loved Isaac and Maeve.
Mm.
I thought that was handled with the utmost care, the utmost grace. That was fantastic. Again, they don't skip any steps at all, but focusing on like what is good in a relationship for Isaac, someone in his
Yeah.
condition, obviously, in a wheelchair. That was awesome. And I mean, obviously, long loved the Maeve character because of just Emma Mackey's performance, talking about the,
Oh
the the
yeah.
revelation of season 1 in terms of just a really expressive talent. In season 2, largely sidelined Maeve. She was not interacting with much of the ensemble, given where her characters what her character's up to. In this case, she's still kind of on the side, but I like how they brought her back in, and I didn't mind the eventual love triangle that resurfaced between Otis, Isaac, and Maeve, because I think they really do a good job to make you sympathize and like Isaac. And of course, you already like
Mhm.
Maeve. So I really like that stuff.
Yeah, Isaac is a character that I'm like lukewarm on. I, for some reason, just have not really grown to love in the show. But I do think by the end of the season, he was growing on me more. Who grew on me a lot this season though was Mimi Keene as Ruby Matthews.
Yes.
Otis's
The-
love interest being in
Didn't see that
season.
coming, right? All the Ruby
Me
stuff.
neither. And not only I did like her character grow on me. I think especially when she brings Otis home to meet her dad, and then like everything that comes about after that, and how that really like builds out, kind of like why she's built some of the defense mechanisms she has. Um, But I think just in general, every time she was on the screen and really like at the center of a scene, she absolutely stole it, and she was completely magnetic. And there's a lot of talent on this show, but Mimi Keen definitely stood out to me as someone that feels like she could be out on the radar for better things to come for sure. Um, I wanted to ask, how did you feel about all the stuff with the adults? Obviously you have Gillian Anderson,
Mm.
um, and I thought she was her typical fantastic self, but I feel like her development and her character was really at the center of the story rather than on the outside as support to Otis and his story. How did you feel about everything with her?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I'd like more focus on the kids just because I'm more interested in their characters, but she's so important to the story, given her role as, a sex therapist and how she affects Otis and um, not Ola's, living with them and everything. It makes sense. And Anderson obviously elevates all the scenes she's in, always really good. But yeah, I mean, maybe it's a little like long in the tooth, the pregnancy stuff, right? And like the relationship with Ola's dad, it's like maybe it's spinning its wheels just a tad. I don't know. Like I feel like
Yeah,
there's more like growth in like the arcs and the relationships of a lot more of the kids,
yeah,
whereas Anderson's, you know, uh, what's her name? Jen, uh,
Gene.
Jean. Jean's just kind of like on the hamster wheel until she gives birth.
Yeah. I am interested to see who the real father is because that seems to be the cliffhanger of at the end of the season as she opens up the DNA test. So that'll be a fun storyline, I'm sure, for the next season. Um, just want to shout out a couple more things from the season, right? I thought Lily, played by Tanya Reynolds, really grew on me this season, and especially like where that ended up with her releasing her story, the how that was kind of a plot mover for her um, for the story, but also like the all the kids coming together to really protest against the Jemima Kirk
Mhm.
implemented rules at the school. Um, Ola kind of being in support of Lily was sidelined. I felt a little bit, but you can't give everybody a ton of show on this. I felt the same kind of with Jackson, although Jackson and oh man, what was the character?
The
Cal,
nom
Tila
yes.
Sela. I thought that was a really interesting exploration. I thought really well done. I would like to. I probably should have read a little bit about how the transgender community feels about the way that um, like transgender identity is represented in the story. But from everything I saw, I felt like it was really tastefully and thoughtfully done.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, bringing up like non-binary
Yeah,
identity and how that affects the often routine and traditional uh, divisions and classifications that happen in a school, whether it's due to conservatism, traditionalism, or due to logistics, whatever it might be. Uh, Jemima Kirk kind of nods to both sides. I think they do a good
yeah,
job of not having her tilt her hand too much on how she feels about things. She's always trying to like bring it back to bettering the school and like education, research, and all that shit, right? Even as it obviously gets too far and uh, you know absurd by the end. But yeah, I think that was a nice addition. Now, did I see like Jackson kind of being the vehicle to introduce that kind of story? Not necessarily. I guess they kind of need something for Jackson to do on this, given that like the swimming stuff has been dropped and all that. But I think I like that, and that's probably one of the better ongoing conflicts that you get when you have this new head teacher character that obviously is really effective at bringing in all this new conflict that can simmer and exist throughout the progression of the season.
yeah. Um, you know, we could probably go on for a long time talking about this show, and it's all good stuff. I think, in contrast to Nine Perfect Strangers, a lot of threads here that all feel like they're tailored together really, really well. So definitely enjoyed this a lot more. Just really quickly, what were like your favorite episodes?
Yeah, I really like the beginning. I do think everything that's set up with Otis and Ruby is really good. Like you mentioned, when you go to Ruby's house, meet her dad. Thought that was really great. Yeah, and like because like and then the build up, right, where Otis doesn't say "I love you" back. It's like I was like, oh fuck, I was actually
Mhm.
rooting for them, and you wouldn't think he'd be rooting for them given where we started in season one. It just speaks to the how much work this show does to get you to invest in the ensemble and how it really builds up his relationships. So yeah, I think the early going is really effective. Once we get later on, like obviously like the school trip is fun, um, but the Anderson pregnancy relationship stuff, as we said, kind of starts to wane or get a little old. So I think the beginning's really great.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the beginning's really great. I do like when they do I don't know, the assembly to kind of get back at Jemima Kirk and get her fired. I thought that whole penultimate episode was just really, really strong. Ending in the Otis and Maeve moment. Otis and Maeve are feeling a little bit like they're on the normal people path. The timing's just never right. Kind
Mm,
of weaving in and out, which is a
fuck.
little bit frustrating. I kind of wanted to see them like get together. I'm not as interested in their relationship, I think, as I am in some of the other storylines of the show.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
but
Yeah, I think that might just speak to they've done a really good job of establishing Otis and Maeve on their own as characters that have relationships with other people, and whether it's platonic or romantic. So I like that those two characters aren't completely defined by the will they or won't they. That obviously will come back around by, we assume, season four. Probably the last season, I'd have to imagine. They've been in what's the term? Sixth term. Fuck. Whatever the
senior
English.
year, yeah.
Yeah, whatever the English schooling term is for the end of secondary school. They've been in that term the whole time. I know it's a 2 year term in England, so 4 seasons for this 2 year term. I feel like we've kind of reached the end. So I'd imagine
Yeah.
they'll announce a fourth and final season.
Yeah, and also I think all of these, like this ensemble cast of young people, are just going to start getting more and more roles, and getting them together is probably going to be hard. So I think that's probably a good call. Yeah, leave us your thoughts
It's sorry,
on
it's called sixth form for
sixth
the
form.
the end of secondary school in England. Sorry.
So leave us your thoughts on if you liked or didn't like Sex Education season 3. I've seen mostly positive reviews for it. Uh, Dave, I have a less positive review of Clint Eastwood's new movie, Cry Macho. This is his last one, right?
He
That
doesn't have
not
anything
announced.
announced coming up. Obviously, he's
Feels like his
been
last one.
very active despite now being 91. This is the 25th movie he's starred and directed in. He's been directing films for over 50 years.
Yeah.
Um, in the case of Cry Macho, he initially thought about adapting the book back in 1988, but he thought at the age of 58 he was too young to effectively play the part. So the fact that he came back around and pulled this off, I imagine he was 90 or 89 when he made this. Pretty impressive, kind of a flex. But yeah, this is the latest entry in his now storied directing career uh,
Mhm.
at Warner Brothers. Obviously, this movie is also available on HBO Max, and we've talked about a lot of Clint Eastwood stuff lately because he's been active. I really like The Mule. We talked about Richard Jewell. He's been out there. And it's actually kind of notable. Is this his last movie? He does look older than he did in The Mule, and The Mule's not that old. So Clint's perhaps getting to the end of the line as a star. You know, is this his old man the gun the way Robert Redford
Right.
sailed off into the sunset? I'm not sure because it just seems like he just likes to work and likes to kind of meditate on his own, career the way he picks roles these days.
Yeah, I think there's just something about the movie that feels a bit like final on a roll kind of thing. It's you think about Clint Eastwood, you obviously think about like the old westerns and this guy who just felt invincible, larger than life in a lot of ways. I mean, you say Clint Eastwood, and I think people just immediately think movie star, and he looks really frail in this movie, and that's I think probably partially the role. But also, like you said, he was probably 89 or 90 when filming on this raft. I believe you said he's 91 now.
Yep.
He is not a young man, and um, I gotta be honest, I didn't really enjoy this movie very much. Um, I think it's well shot. I think the story is pretty interesting. I gotta say, I thought the acting performance, especially from Eduardo Manet playing Raffo, was kind of tough at points. And I also just think certain aspects of the movie just didn't really work so well for me. So I wasn't a huge fan, but I give a lot of credit to uh, Clint, like you said, coming back around on this, and you know, keep working if that's what he wants to do. What did you think of the movie?
Yeah, I think it's all right. You know, it's moves a little slow for a movie that's not also that long. It's like an hour 40 or whatever.
Mhm.
Um, I think it's interesting as just a greater piece of meta stuff, right? For again, Clint playing these obviously by design older characters, but like they're often like people like at the end of the roads, at long careers, and it's like always like a really refinement of like the classic Clint Eastwood role. It's not he's picking something random. You know, he's always doing something that feels very much like a Clint role and a Clint old late career role. You know, so
Mhm.
I get that. I think that's cool. Obviously, the movie's quality is up and down depending on what it is. And again, he makes so much movies that inevitably there will be some ups and downs. But yeah, I think it's just a bit more predictable than I expected. And Clint doesn't have the even light action chops to kind of spice up a lot of this stuff. So it's really going to all be dialogue, you know?
Mhm.
Like we show him getting like he's getting on the horse, but like there's a lot of like quick cutting and stuff. You can tell that like it's Clint can stand on a horse. He probably can't ride a horse anymore, you know? So,
Yeah,
I think it's okay. Um, but it also doesn't have like grand ambition, right? Like it's a kind of a simple story at the end of the day
yeah, it's a
in
small
terms
story,
in
sure.
terms of like, you know, coming to terms with what is like, masculinity, what is being macho mean, all that. So I don't think it's, trying to be high minded or anything. It's fine.
Yeah, yeah. I think right from the get go, it starts off Clint Eastwood uh, and Dwight Yoakam having
Mm,
this conversation. I thought just the acting in this scene was really bad, especially on Yoakam's part. It kind of maybe it was the editing of it, but the conversation kind of cuts from him being like, "You're washed up, Mike. You're a piece of shit now. You're not doing anything with your life. What do you get out of here?" And Mike's like, "Okay." And then Dwight Yoakam's like, "But I need you to go get my son." And I'm like, "What the hell is like going on here?" And I just really thought it was like really wooden and just like not
mm,
that impressive. And then Eduardo Mene, like I mentioned, he's a kid, so and it seems like he might have been I don't know, maybe like out of his depth on this. Acting alongside a legend like Clint Eastwood, probably a very intimidating thing to do. But I really felt like he was very I don't know, unconvincing in the
mm.
role, and just like especially for someone who's lived with a mother who seems quite emotionally and mentally abusive, and as well as physically abusive, living on the street, kind of living off cockfighting. Seems just like super chipper and like kind of like okay to do whatever, and I just don't feel like he could hit the emotional depth of someone who's been through that sort of pain. At least that's not what came across to me. Did you get that same sense in the performances, or did you like them?
Yeah, no, I agree. I don't know if he was that convincing as someone who's supposed to be hard,
Mhm.
street bound kid, growing up in a rough circumstance. I don't know. It's all right. It's whatever. How did you feel about the romance though? That seems to always accompany a Clint Eastwood movie, no
Dude,
matter the age of Mr. Eastwood.
dude, that was really tough for me. The fact that this like 90-year-old man is like being lusted after by uh I don't don't remember the actress's name. It was just really like surprising, but also just like I unbelievable to me. Like, there's no way that that woman would be like interested in a relationship with someone who's kind of that frail. I would imagine. I mean, just very hard for me to imagine. I think, and it just felt like there was an like it could have been a. I think it could have been a really nice thing if it was like him finding community, him finding support without it having to turn romantic. But of course, it had to turn romantic, and that's was just not a good call for me. Seems like you didn't like that part either.
Nah, I mean it's just kind of distracting, especially the early stuff. It's like Rafa's mom is like giving him all this shit, and then next thing you know, she's kind of like hitting on him, and I don't know, kind of like weakened the. I don't know. I guess that they were doing it to were they doing it to show like her instability? I don't really know, you know.
Yeah,
And if we kind of cut that out, and this was truly just like an on the road movie between a man and a young man, I think it could have been a lot stronger. But
yeah,
I mean, I'm not too mad about it. It's
yeah.
whatever.
The part of the movie I think I liked the most was when they're kind of like hiding out of that church, and
Mm.
they're kind of like he's helping out with the animals, and Raffo is learning how to like ride a horse and making friends, meeting girls. Like, that part was probably the best part to me because I felt like it really hit home. I think what the second theme beyond how machismo culture and macho culture is kind of overrated and unnecessary, but the idea of like community being where you find healing and where you find a sense of belonging. Both Raffo and Mike are these very lonely people when they meet each other, and when they start to come around as characters is when they're you know uh, involved in something bigger than them, and helping others. And I think that that was by far the most effective part of the movie for me. The rest of the like on the run stuff, I never really found to be too like tense or upsetting. I think maybe the scene between Mike and Rocco's mom, where she's like sort of seducing him. I don't know what the intention was there, but I thought that scene was like probably the most tense. Anything with Rocco's mom and Mike, I found to be pretty good, but yeah, the rest of the movie just not really impressive for me. Tough watch for me, but you know, it like we said, we give credit to Clint. Sounds like you liked it a little more than I did. Any last thoughts on it?
No, I mean, make another one. Why not? I
Keep
mean,
going.
thinking about like when Unforgiven comes out in what 91 or 92, whenever it was. Gene Hackman is approaching the end of his career, and by the early 2000s, he completely checks out and truly leaves. And Clint Eastwood just has had no interest in doing that. He's around, so you know
Yeah,
what? Stay around, man. Do your thing.
uh, uh, I hope so. I hope I was wrong on this being his last movie. Um, Dave, we're gonna do another nostalgia ranks next week. We're talking Kanye, so this one's gonna be long. It's gonna be in depth. Go listen to the albums now to make yourself familiar because we're doing the best Kanye albums, worst to best. But then in 2 weeks, what does everybody have to be tuning into?
Yeah, very exciting. Star Wars Visions. Talking about that, Disney Plus, non-canon Star Wars anime project, bunch of separate anthology shorts, very exciting. We'll also get to The Eyes of Tammy Faye, which is out now. Dear Evan Hansen, the filmed version, is
Yeah,
coming out. We'll see about that one. Um,
Ben Platt looking real old.
Ben Platt definitely still looks 18. Uh, new lot of new music. Joey Perp, Leslie Cara, Heady One. Venom 2 is coming out. We got plenty of stuff. October is going to be very busy, but happy
Looking
about
forward
that.
to it. Also excited that I've seen a lot of positives of the early viewings of Dune. So
Fuck yeah.
really
And it's doing
excited
well at
about
the
that.
box office internationally so far, which is great, and no small feat for sci-fi that's not, Star Wars.
Can't wait. So hit that subscribe if you're on youtube.com/nostalgiapod, soundcloud.com/nostalgiapod, and to check out Injury Reserve, Lil Nas X, and all the other music that we like this year. Nostalgia Best of 2021 on Spotify. Catch you in 2 weeks.